Hey guys, what's up? So I wanted to do a lyric breakdown of the song that is taking off right now called Let It Out on YouTube. It's down as This Song Will Make You Cry. It's a song with my girlfriend. So I just wanted to go through the lyrics one at a time and go in depth with my thought process and why I wrote it that way, and just sort of some secret behind the scenes stuff, like lyrics that ended up not being in the song and what I ended up doing with my girlfriend. So let's get into it. So this is the song. This song will make you cry. It's at 436,000 views right now, which is kind of crazy. What we'll do is we'll just play it out. I also have the lyrics here. So all the stuff that's highlighted and underlined is the things that my girlfriend sings. So we just separated that so that when she was reading the lyrics, she didn't sing these parts, and that way there was a good contrast between the male and female voice in it, and just gave more clarity when we were recording. And this was produced by Raspo Beats. Beautiful piano to open it. I actually edited this video together on my phone using CapCut. I literally just found a photo. I looked up like silhouette of young child, and I found this photo, and it was like a whole gray background or green background. I went on CapCut, was just playing around with different effects. I found this little paper cutout effect, and what I did is I added some subtle movement. So if you look at the video, there's like a subtle sway of the overall video. That's because I added a little pendulum effect very subtly, just to give the impression that it's more well edited and to give sort of a higher production quality feel. So it's not just a stagnant video with no movement. It's sort of like floating around. So if you look close, you see the character sort of going up and down a little bit. Everyone's got. And then I found this water effect. This is like an underwater effect that I added, and it immediately just brought me into it. And so I was like, you know what, I got to do that. And then just, simple ink. Problems inside their head, unaddressed and trauma left unsaid. Out loud, time to let it out. So I think that's a powerful opening. I actually wrote this song the day that I felt my emotions for the first time in many years. I was very numb for a lot of my life. I didn't really learn how to process emotion. And I played hockey for many years as a goalie. And what that did is it essentially trained me to not feel emotion, because I was always told that if I let out my emotion, then coaches aren't going to want to pick me on the team. Like if I let in a bad goal and I slam my stick on the post, they're not going to want to pick me because I don't have any control of myself. And so instead of learning how to manage it in a healthy way, I just suppressed it all. And I just trained myself to not feel. And I could literally make my emotions a switch. Like if I was upset, I could literally go, okay, not upset. And I could literally just numb it out completely. Like I had complete and utter control of my emotions. And I was learning how to feel my emotions again. I was working with a coach. And one day I cried in my bed the same way that the lyrics say in this song. You just want to sob it out in your bed, but you're scared to bawl, so you suppress. And we'll get to that in a second. But that was literally my experience. And so writing this, I was like, how can I capture this in a way that also can bring other people into it? Because yes, this is my experience, but I want other people to be able to feel this. And so that's why I started off with everyone's got problems inside their head, unaddressed, and trauma left unsaid, because I didn't realize the amount of trauma that I experienced in my life. It was normal to me. And so that line is finally coming to terms with the trauma that I've experienced and encouraging other people to do the same. And then time to let it out. And we started with time to let it out, and then we added it's time to let it out. So it just adds a little extra syllable each time, so you get the impression that it's building. It's repetitive, but there's a little subtle thing that's different each repetition of the time to let it out.
may feel you're falling into the depths. Haven't get so far from extended hands. What now? It's time to let it out, and you just wanna stop.
So I'll pause it there. That line, you may feel you're falling into the depths. That's exactly how I felt when I was feeling my emotions for the first time. I was like, man, my world is crumbling around me. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle these feelings. I didn't even realize that these sensations in my body existed. And then there's the line after that, which is heaven gets so far from extended hands. And I love that line because I wanted to say, like, you know, you're feeling like you're drifting away from God, but I wanted to say it in a very poetic, visual way. And so I sort of imagine falling into the abyss, into a dark pit almost, and you're reaching, almost like trying to grab back onto God as you're falling. And you feel like heaven is just getting farther and farther away, and you're extending your hands, but you can't quite reach it. And I think that captures it so well, because when you're spiraling out of control and you're feeling all this emotion and you don't know how to process it, you feel like you're just getting further and further away from stability and from that groundedness that is provided from, you know, a spiritual worldview when you have an intimate relationship with God. So whether you're feeling emotion because of trauma, or whether you're feeling emotion because maybe you sinned, maybe you turned your back on God, and you're finally realizing that, and you're realizing what you've done, and you don't know how to handle that guilt, and you don't know how to process it. And this is saying, it's okay, let it out. You need to confront it. It's sort of bringing more people in so they can relate as well.
And you just wanna sob it out in your bed, but you're scared to fall, so you suppress. You're safe now. It's time to let it out.
I'm pausing every line because every line is very in-depth. You just want to sob it out in your bed, but you're scared to bawl, and so you suppress. That's exactly how I felt. I wanted to just let everything out, but I'm like, oh, my sister's in the hallway, or oh, I hear my mom in the other room, and I don't want to cry, because if I cry, then they're going to come in, they're going to be worried about me, and I don't want people to worry about me because I feel like I'd just be a burden if that was the case. And so you suppress because you don't know how to handle it. You don't want other people to get wrapped up in your problems because you feel like, oh, well, I don't want people to have to deal with me. And I always make sure that I'm not a burden for other people so that they'll always accept me. It's all these things that we've told ourselves to try to earn love. And that's sort of a trend with all this and with other songs. And I'm getting more into that with newer stuff that I'm writing as well. But this song is the reminder that although you feel those triggers, this song is like the safe space. And it's like, I know you feel this way, but you're safe now. And it's time to let it out. You're safe. You can put your headphones on. You can immerse yourself into this world where you're allowed to feel, and you're allowed to not escape in a bad fantasy way where you're distancing yourself from reality, but in a way where you're actually getting more in touch with reality. That's sort of the type of music that I want to make, where it's like escapism into reality. Like you're escaping deeper into reality. That's sort of what I want to do.
Oh, you feel like no one cares. You're on your own, alone with fear, and no one knows just what you bear. Want someone close, but no one is there.
Okay, I gotta pause it there. You feel like no one cares. Because maybe there's trends in your life where it seems like nobody does care, right? And every time that you've ever let out your emotions, you're just considered a burden. Everyone's just like, oh, be quiet. Why are you such a crybaby, etc. And that hurts. It hurts when you have real emotion and real vulnerability that you want to express, and you want to get support, and you want to feel loved, and no one's there. what's the line? You're on your own, alone with fear. You feel like you've isolated yourself onto this island because since everyone has made you feel like you're a burden, you just isolate yourself. And so now you're left on your own because you've closed yourself off. But you're not alone. Fear is with you. You're afraid. And so I said that to almost create this visual of you're trapped in this room with fear, and you chose that. Not in a way of negative, condescending, like you chose that, but just to realize we make those decisions to isolate ourselves. We make those decisions out of fear. And when we do, we can become a slave to fear because we're not giving love an opportunity to work in our lives. And maybe that's a defense mechanism, and it probably is, because we want to feel safe, and everybody in our life has proven that they're not safe to be around. And so that makes sense that we would close ourselves off in those situations. But it's also not good to just close ourselves off completely and utterly to everyone all the time, because there are people that you can trust, whether it's going to a therapist, finding a trustworthy friend. We need those people in our lives. And if we don't have them, we need to find them. Let's go back a few seconds.
No one is there, and when the tears come out, there's someone else in need of help.
I'm going to pause it there again. I'm sorry for pausing so much, but this is the lyric breakdown, right? When the tears come out, there's someone else in need of help. And then it says, the next line is this.
So you hide the fact you're feeling down, no.
It's like every time that you want to be the one to finally let out your emotions and other people can give you the benefit of the doubt and maybe this time they'll care about you, it always ends up about somebody else. And someone else is always the one emotional. And so you always need to be empathetic to that person and understand where they're coming from. But then what about people doing that for you? So that's what I felt when I wrote this song. I wanted to let it out. But when I try to talk to somebody, there's always some other problem going on that they want to vent about and that they think is the bigger problem because it's their problem and it's their thing that they're going through. So ultimately, you hide the fact that you're feeling down and you suppress it and you put on the fake smile. And then one of my favorite parts of the song, the drop.
Down, no, let it out, all the tears you held in for too long. Through the years, emotions have become unclear. Just listen to this song when you need a shoulder to cry on.
Let it out, all the tears you've held in for too long. It's sort of the first of two climaxes of the song where we've built up all this emotion and brought people in who can relate. And now this is the peak where if you haven't started to let it out already, this is the moment where the emotion, the music all comes together. And it says, let it out, all these tears that you've held in for too long. Man, I'm almost getting emotional. Because some things we hold on to for so many years and we become a slave to it. But this is saying, let that out. You've held on to it for too long. Through the years, your emotions have become unclear. You've sort of lost touch with them. You don't understand it, and that's okay. Just let it out. That's the whole message of the song. Just let it out. And then listen to this song when you need a shoulder to cry on. I want this song to be a safe space for people when they're emotional. This song is something that they can go to. And I want all of my songs to have an effect like that, where when somebody feels a certain way, they associate it with the song that I made about that subject. And so then they can use that song to contextualize and understand what they're feeling. And so for this song, it's, okay, I feel emotional, but I'm suppressing it. Oh, sparks the reminder. What about the song Let It Out? You listen to the song, you use that as a guide, and then my song Another Way, for example, is about turning to God and finding another way when you've been trying to cope with pain and trying to solve things for yourself. It's like, well, then you can associate that situation in your life with that song, and then you listen to the song and you get context, and at the end of the song it says, God, I'll take a step to you. And so that's what I want my music to be, is a reminder for people where a situation that they're in is so closely associated with the song because they relate to it so much that it sparks the message of the song, and hopefully the message of the song can be powerful enough to penetrate the walls that the person has built up, and it can make an impact and help them in that situation.
To cry on, sad your dad was absent when you were a kid. Mom was distant and that's difficult to forgive. Why weren't they there to comfort and hug their own kid? Why?
Man, it's so hard to pause this because it just flows so beautifully. But that line, sad your dad was absent when you were a kid, I think a lot of people relate to that, because the word absent, it doesn't necessarily mean just gone completely out of your life forever. It could be like generally absent, like not present when he's with you, or not emotionally connected. And I think that touches so many people, because fatherlessness and irresponsible fathers is such a big problem in our culture. And that has to do with the whole subject of porn and how men's minds are being destroyed and oriented away from family. And that's what my song Hollow Men is about. But that has an effect on the children deeply, deeply. And so this was sort of the last thing that I wanted to say, which was sort of the crux of a lot of my trauma at that time that I was digging up, was parent wounds, the father wound, the mother wound, and coming to terms with that and healing with my parents. And so I wrote that in a way that was vague enough for many people of many different backgrounds to relate to it, but also specific enough to where you hear it, you go, oh my gosh, that's me. And for me, I don't want to get into too much detail, but that's sort of what I felt when I was younger. I personally wouldn't use the word absent. That I sort of leaned into the word absent for the sake of the song, because I think it works better and it can still apply to my situation. It's just a bit of a strong word for my situation, I would say. But then mom was distant and that's difficult to forgive. That line is probably the most personal line of the entire song for me, because I didn't have the closest relationship to my mom when I was younger. I lived with my grandparents for the first few years of my life. I've had conversations with both my dad and my mom, and we have healed significantly. That's something that it would be great to talk about on like a podcast or something, because healing with my dad, like sobbing on his shoulder and feeling like a baby, even though I was a 19-year-old man. And some people might scoff at that and laugh at that, but there's so much freedom and healing on the other side of something like that. And in the moment, you might feel like, oh, I feel pathetic. This is unacceptable. I feel embarrassed because I'm crying and I'm a man. It's like, what's the alternative? Living a life of being a slave to your past and never expressing emotion and never experiencing real love and intimacy because you're too afraid of embarrassing yourself? What you realize, at least what I've realized in my experience, I can't speak for everybody, but in my experience, opening up has been like the most freeing thing, because when you're genuinely honest and genuinely open and somebody accepts you, then that acceptance is so much more valuable than if you just are shallow and they accept you. So the whole difficult to forgive thing, that was also something that I held on to for many, many years. And I actually just recently healed from that and just finally let it go after the song was released. I knew I had to have a conversation with my mom and say, you know what, Mom, I love you and I forgive you, and I understand that you had your own situation and I'm not going to blame you. I'm not going to blame my problems on you anymore. I am a man and I'm going to take responsibility for where I'm at, and I'm going to heal and I'm going to change. And my mom accepted me and she thanked me and we hugged and it was beautiful. And then I felt that connection with my mom, and it was beautiful because I haven't really felt that in my life. It's crazy because this song and things related to this song, it sparks healing in my own personal life. And I think that's beautiful when I can allow my music to mirror or parallel my personal life and use it as an inspiration for what I'm doing in my personal life.
Why, let it out, 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 let it
actually added the "it's okay" when we were recording. Originally, it was just let it out the whole way through, and I was like, yeah, no, it's a bit repetitive, so I mixed in the "it's okay" so it sort of bridged the two sections of the repetition together.
Okay to let it out, 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 let it
Yeah, my girlfriend's voice is so phenomenal on that. Like, I remember when I pitched it to her, I had originally, before I ever met my girlfriend, reached out to somebody from the States that I had heard like made Instagram videos of singing, and I was like, oh, this person has a good voice. So I reached out to them, and I was planning to do it with that person originally, and then it fell through, and that person was busy with college. And then I met my girlfriend, and then I found out that my girlfriend was amazing at singing. And so I pitched this song to her because I was like, it needs a female voice because it needs to encapsulate the masculine and the feminine, as if this song is like the replacement of the parents that failed to express love and provide a safe environment, right? Because if you grew up and maybe your dad was absent or your mom was distant and you never had that safety, well, this is the masculine and the feminine energy comforting you. And so I really knew that it needed a female vocal. And I worked on it with my girlfriend. We did a rough draft before she really knew the lyrics and before I knew really how to sing it properly. And our rough draft was, in fact, very rough. And then she came back another day and we re-recorded it, recorded a bunch of takes, and I edited it down and mixed the whole song myself, actually, which I'm pretty proud of and surprised by because I had just started mixing seriously, and it took a long time to mix. I actually live streamed the entire thing. It's unlisted on my page right now, but I can maybe re-upload it, or I might upload some snippets of it. But there's a whole like 3-hour live of me mixing this song before it was ever done. And then I sent it off to a friend of mine, Isaac Mather, who mastered the song and just brought the volume levels all consistent. My girlfriend's voice is beautiful, and I love what we did where it starts off with me and then she sort of fades in a little bit and pulls back, and then it's just me, and then she fades in a little bit and she sort of fades in more and more as the song goes on, and then it's both together, and then by the end of the song it's like just her voice fading off at the end. So it's that nice progression. And if you really listen closely, I want to skip back to a part where there's some background vocals that she did humming, and they're so beautiful. I think it's right here. So listen very closely to the background.
No, let it out, all the tears you held in for too long. Through the years, emotions have become.
I don't know if you hear that, but it's like,
Unclear, just listen to this song when you need a shoulder to cry on. Sound your dad.
It's a little bit more clear there. So beautiful, and the reverb that I picked for it was perfect. It sounds like it's in a really wide canyon, and it just lingers, and it's beautiful. So skip to the end here where it has the little excerpt, and cut to black to let people reflect on it, and then there's this quote.
Every single adult is a child, and until you spend time getting to know that child, you will never fully have access to that adult.
So that line is actually from the coach that I worked with for a couple years, and her name is Ashley Zahabian. She teaches emotional intelligence, and she basically taught me how to feel emotion again after being numb for so many years. I was in like this whole group class on Zoom, and it was phenomenal. And that is actually a snippet from one of her videos on TikTok. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, can I use this clip at the end of my song? Because I feel like this sentence sort of ties in the whole message of getting in touch with that inner child and healing so that you can have full access to you as an adult. And she said, sure. So I literally copied the link, did the whole YouTube or TikTok to MP3 converter, dragged it in, added some reverb. I had to sort of EQ out the background sounds. There was like birds chirping in the background. So I added that in and then let it linger out at the end. So that's the song, produced by Raspo. Beautiful instrumentation. And if you guys want to see the lyrics, these are the lyrics as they were written. So you can see how they're separated. I usually separate the different segments, and I have like the little dash for the lingering on. Unaddressed and trauma left unsaid out loud, and then underline for my girlfriend to join in on the time to let it out. So then we have all these lyrics. And then, see, originally I was thinking like maybe I should make it a more spiritual song because it sort of could be viewed as quite depressing. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe I should introduce hope at the end. And so later, after I had written the song, I had this whole let Jesus in at the end. But I was like, okay, that sounds like way too cheesy, way too forced, way too in your face. And I feel like it would just diminish the effect of the song because then it seems like I'm trying to like push Jesus into it. And it's not a bad thing for Jesus to be involved because ultimately God is a healer. But I just felt like it didn't fit with the song. And I didn't write it until after I had already written the full song. I added it in later. And I was like, you know what? This doesn't stay true to how I felt in that moment when I wrote it. And when I wrote it, the honest way I was feeling was I felt like nobody was there. I felt distant from God. And I was like, I'm going to stay honest. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it later or recontextualize it and change it later. This is the raw emotion that I felt in that moment. And maybe I changed a couple words here and there just for the sake of the listener. But it's very raw. It's very how I felt. I wrote most of this song literally on the day or in the surrounding days of when I experienced this whole thing. And then there's some extra lyrics down here. I don't know what they all say. Some of them are probably terrible ideas, which is why I didn't use them. Don't be afraid, cry out to him. Don't hide your face, let it out to him. Heaven gains another beautiful soul. Then I had an idea for like the ending becoming like a worship song. Again, scratch that idea because I had already written it and I was like, you know what, I'm just trying to add too much. Yeah, like as you can see here, this is all like ideas for a hopeful ending where I bring God into it. And I was like, you know what? This song is part of an album. And I think I captured the whole idea of being open to God with the line of heaven gets so far from extended hands, which implies that you're reaching for heaven. So God is still there. I just didn't want it to be in your face. I'm very conscious of this stuff. Obviously, I'm a Christian, but I'm not here to force that on people. I'm not here to shove it in your face. I don't want that to take away from the message of the song by shoehorning something in there. I want the song to stand by itself, and if that's relevant to the specific song, then I include it to add to the song in a positive way. But there's my lyric breakdown. I could go more in depth with all the rhymes, but that would probably have to be a whole separate video because I've been on here for quite some time. Like, own alone with fear and no one knows just what you bear once someone close. Like all the internal rhyme schemes just for things to flow better. Everything's intentional about this song. Every inflection, everything. I think we really nailed it, my girlfriend and I. And shout out to my girlfriend. It was her first time ever recording a song. Her first time singing into a recording microphone. And her first song ever, it's at like 430-something thousand views now, growing like almost 10,000 views a day. So that's pretty insane, and that's pretty incredible. So I think I'll wrap it up there. That's sort of a breakdown of the song. This song will make you cry on YouTube. The original title is Let It Out. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. I'll have the links to everything in the description. I'm going to be trying to do more stuff like this. Maybe I'll be starting like a podcast or something soon. I love this setup. I want to do more with everything that I got going on and utilize everything I have more. I just got these new lights, got the album cover in the background from my album. I had to move it over to the hook over here so that you can see it in the background, but That's everything from me. God bless you guys. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for sticking to the end of this video.